to my world. And I can't believe it. He's done it again. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing the world he didn't exist. If a nuclear holocaust happened tomorrow, all that would be left is cockroaches and Jeff Jarrett doing the Fargo strut. Here he is. Oh, yeah. Your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, you got a lot of explaining to do, my friend. I'm not even talking about football. We're not going to talk about football today. We'll do that next week.
Oh, no, come on.
Come on. Let's talk about wrestling. Of course, our topic today is Genesis 2007. And I have every intention of talking about this. I got 21 pages of notes.
Oh, my God. You ain't kidding. Derek, Jesus.
But if I didn't jump right into it and say, Jeff Jarrett, damn it, how in the world? Listen, we all know that you single-handedly ruined WCW. We all know that you single-handedly killed the new generation and the Attitude Era and the PG era. We all know that you single-handedly have ruined TNA and Impact. We all know that you ruined the Horsemen. You ruined the Bullet Club. And now I guess you come on this program and claim to be a member of the Clique.
Yeah.
You're going to get on here and say, well, I'm a member of the Elite. Now I'm the Elite. Now I'm going to look at you. What's going on, Jeff? First of all, congratulations. What a year you've had, dude. I mean, you popped up at the AEW or the AAA show, WrestleMania weekend. You managed to headline an NWA pay-per-view in a referee position, and you're co-main eventing SummerSlam in your hometown stadium as a referee. Ric Flair's last match. You showed Effie about old school at the biggest GCW show ever. And now the Last Outlaw is calling out Sting on TNT or TBS. What year is it, Jeff? How are you doing all this? Congratulations.
Conrad, I just got to say that I would be remorse if I didn't say when the pieces of the puzzle started to fall together and the behind the scenes role as well as in front of the camera, all those pieces started to kind of fall in, and it didn't happen overnight. This has kind of been a work in progress for quite some time. It wasn't something that just kind of happened overnight. I would be lying if I didn't say, I can't wait to tell old Conrad. I just cannot wait to get his reaction, because I almost could have wrote that script for you. You would have gone down the whole laundry list.
Yes.
Just poke fun, but had fun. And then, hey, man, I'm proud to be your partner. And I wore this shirt on purpose for you non-video folks.
Slap Nuts LLC.
That's me and Conrad's partnership, appropriately put. But yeah, man, life is bizarre, is it not? Life is good. Life is crazy. All the twists and turns. You know, me and you have kind of joked offhanded about my summer internship. And before that happened, just kind of how it all weaved in. I surprised you on January 1st, did I not? I sent you a little text and I said, hey, hypothetically, what are you doing tonight? I don't know how it went down, but January 1st, and it's just kind of kept rolling along, hadn't it?
It's been a lot of fun, man. And it's funny because I don't know if you remember, but when I first cut a promo, the teaser for this podcast, I sort of poked fun at, I know what you're thinking, another wrestling podcast. But hear me out.
You sure did.
And I just tried to tell your story. Listen, man, I saw the reaction online. There's a whole bunch of fans who are, oh my God, Jeff Jarrett's here. I love it. And then there's a whole bunch of fans who are like, oh my God, I hate Jeff Jarrett, which is kind of the idea. So thank you. But I knew that narrative was out there. And I thought, if I could just explain what all has happened in this guy's career, he might be the most fascinating person, not just in wrestling today, but maybe in wrestling history.
Oh, come on.
And that was last year. That was last April. And we take everything that you've done since that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know yet. I won't talk about all the other stuff that we can't talk about on air, but everybody knows you're working on a video game. Everybody knows you've done the baseball thing. Everybody knows that you wrestled Ric Flair in his last match. Everybody knows you took Effie to the limit in his home turf, just wore his ass out, old school style. And what you've done in AAA and just on and on and on. And then SummerSlam. And now I mean, I don't know. I'm not writing, I'm not booking, but if you're calling out Sting and you just clobbered Darby Allin, it feels like there may be a match in the cards at some point for you. Instead, like nobody would have predicted this. And it just goes to show you that as much as people want to say, well, it's this, well, it's that, I'll tell you what it is. It's hard work. It's perseverance. It's working your tail off from the minute you open your eyes until you close them every day. And it's a positive mental attitude. You have just persevered and willed yourself into good spots over and over and over. And I hope everyone who's in the wrestling business or wants to be in or around the wrestling business takes note of what's happened. Because a lot of people, when they're handed some maybe walking papers of sorts, they'd put their head in the sand. They'd kick their can. They'd boo-boo face. And yet, look at you. Just look at you. Here you are. It's amazing. Bravo. I'm in awe of you, kind sir. Congratulations.
Oh, stop it. You know, I've had different conversations, and I knew we would I thought we would kick it off with football talk because there's a lot of football left to be played on both sides of the ball, but that's another conversation. But with that being said, I knew we'd probably have this conversation, and I appreciate you saying that because, you know, in the different little footnotes in we'll call it Double J's career, you know, I may be, and we've talked about this, I may be the last hire of VKM. That may or may not true, he whatever that may be. But from that point to now, there was a lot of soul searching, a lot of thought process. And I can tell you today, I don't know if I'm more excited about the behind the scenes work or the executive work or all that, or the in-ring stuff, because Karen texted me Wednesday about 1:30 and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I feel like I'm a 19-year-old rookie pacing around WMC TV studios." I said, "I'm nervous." I said, I said, "I'm nervous about tonight. I'm thinking things through, want it to go right. Wasn't all sure of that." So that's kind of one of the messages I want to throw out there. Folks, I've been doing it a long time, but I was as nervous as could be. And kind of when the lights restored in the ring, it was a surreal moment. The reaction, had a little fresh coat of paint, a little red guitar, a little red and black guitar. Man, it was Conrad. It was really cool. It was got a good crack in old Darby, and all the faces that I saw backstage. Man, we can make this a whole podcast. We won't. I know we got a topic, but I am really, really, I'm going to steal our good bud EB's title, his book, Grateful. I am super grateful. I'm excited. I'm ready to dig in all kinds of ways, but I knew you'd have a little soliloquy to make it entertaining and funny, but I appreciate the kind words, pal.
I just can't wait until you're strutting ass with the AEW title around your waist. I mean,
here we go. The different comments online, I have to say, the cockroach comments and
my favorite was, whatever you do, don't let Jeff near Shad Khan or he'll be running that whole place. And I just howled with laughter. The narrative that you're just the master finesser. I mean, that's the idea, is that everybody thinks that, boy, Jeff's just, as we've said on the show here before, outsmarting them all. Have you ever thought maybe he just has done this for a long time, since, you know, as long as he can remember, and maybe his family's since been doing it since, I don't know, like World War II or something silly. Like,
you're right.
He's supposed to be good at this, and he understands the wrestling business, and that's why this show is so fun.
I love it. I love the business more today than I ever have. I can honestly sit here and say this. You know, my dad sent me a text that last Wednesday, and then he followed up, and anyway, we had an exchange, and I said, for whatever reason, because he's kind of, I mean, even in his heyday in the Memphis, and Lawler and him, we'll talk about this. And my dad's the literally peak of the bit territory business. Conrad, he'd go away for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I don't think me and you are like mine. I don't think we can relate to that. I you know, my dad at the peak would say, "I'm going to Florida and fish for 6 months. Lawler run the show." What?
Right.
It just, that's kind of how that was his DNA makeup. I love it more today than I ever have. And there's new horizons and new frontiers. And man, the rabid AEW fan base is so vocal online and opinionated and everything that goes with it. I love that because you get a response. One where there's no really gray area. So the analytics and measuring the YouTube and the interest in this and that, and kind of look at the landscape, both domestically and internationally. A lot of fun. I'm pumped. I'm super pumped.
I can't wait to see what all you can do. I know you're working with a really cool crew. I'm glad you're going to get to hang out with our pals Arn Anderson and Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. And man, it feels like our little podcast lineup here is getting more elite.
Schiavone got a shout out. He got a shout out, didn't he?
You know what? I know for sure, without even talking to him, when he got a shout out and Taz didn't, you got heat with Taz. He might put you on your head. Oh, Double J with his Bob Vila glasses out here hugging on you, Schiavone. No love for Taz?
Oh, no. He got called out. He's just one of them clowns up there with Schiavone.
Just wild. Ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't do it with this show without the new AEW Director of Business Development. And be sure when you cut them checks, baby, when you're handing him his bag, that's JEFF. JARRETT.
Stop it.
We've said it before. I want to say it one more time and then we'll move on. If cats have 9 lives, Jeff Jarrett has 10. Congratulations, kind sir. Can't wait.
That's almost like no, it's not a backhanded compliment. It's like I've been dead 9 times. I've never been dead.
Here's what I'm saying. Other people, if they would have been in the position you were in, they would have considered themselves counted out and taken themselves out of the race. You don't do that.
No.
You persevere. You try to see, and you and I are both sick in this regard. Something bad will happen to us, and we will convince ourselves it's a good thing and soldier on. We just keep marching forward.
Why is that a bad thing?
Because I don't think, and you've talked about this, when something bad happened to you with the loss of your friend at a wrestling show many, many years ago, you never allowed yourself to process it.
No,
you just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
Like to kill me.
Well, but the point is, you and I do that in our business life.
Yes.
I can call you with bad news, and we have that conversation for about 7 seconds, and then we're immediately on to how this could be positive for both of us.
We had it last night.
We did. And
we had it.
I called with what might have been horrible news and would be for a lot of other people that I do business with. They would have just been the worst thing ever. But I knew in my mind, well, it's a good thing, and here's why. And I didn't have to sell you on it. You were like, oh, that's great. All right, well, I'm ready. And that was it. And so that's what I appreciate you as a business person, is we understand, hey man, in business, some things are going to work, some things aren't. Let's do more of what works. Let's do less of what doesn't. And that's the reason you've been successful in business. And you you understand most of all that failure is an event, not a person. And so when you stub your toe, pick yourself up, dust your shit off, and let's go. And you've done that over and over and over. Just look at this year, dude. It's phenomenal. I hope everybody in the wrestling business who's worried about their longevity, not necessarily, I had a run once, I was a top guy. No, if you want to make a living for a long, long time in wrestling and you're not paying attention to what Jeff's doing, you're missing out. So bravo, Consar.
Appreciate it, pal. Excited.
That being said, F the volunteers. Genesis 2007.
Hold tight.
It went down November 11th, 2007. And boy, is there a lot to discuss in this show.
Oh my gosh. Conrad, before we get into this, when I read all the research and the in-depth that I think Derek just wanted to humiliate us this week, because this stuff, me trying to recall it and think through it, man, there was a lot going on inside, outside. But 07, so this is the 15th anniversary. Some of the things we're going to talk about today: Rikishi, a power play, a surprise, all this. We had just gotten going to 2 hours, and this is November of 2007. And I think of my personal life where things were going on, and we kind of touched on that last week. There was still a lot of raw emotion going on and in the household. I'll just say I'm glad all of this is in my rearview mirror, because this is a lot. This episode will be a lot of fun. You'll make it fun, but a lot to digest here is what I'm saying.
There's a big showdown, according to the Observer, that ended up with some pacification. Apparently, Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett have hashed things out. The list of names we were given that had to go to get Carter together and try and force a booking change consisted of almost every top name in the company except Sting, who wouldn't take sides. While we had multiple sources list names that were on Angle's side, at least one key person on the list also said he had not been asked to take sides. The complaint is the company should have gone with a more traditional and logical approach to the booking. Different names were mentioned in conversations as to what that entails, but right now it appears everything is status quo. So in case you haven't figured this out, Kurt Angle is now in Dixie Carter's ear. She's looking to pacify her top star. She also wants to level up the company. And as with everything else, there's always a contingent that's not happy in the locker room, thinks it should be done differently. Well, if I run the place, I'd do this, that sort of thing. And you have someone who's been long invested in booking right there as a talent in a fellow named Jim Cornette. And Meltzer even brings it up. Jim Cornette's name did come up in conversation in recent weeks regarding the same thing of wanting logical booking. Although, as best I can tell, it was not from the wrestlers who were going to force a change and then compromised on the issue. But he was approached with a what if scenario, although what would go on to become a vocal part of the committee as opposed to a singular booker. He was negative on adding the stress in his life. Cornette apparently tries to keep his frustration with the booking to a minimum, but he's very high on the ability of most of the company's wrestlers. So it feels as if people think, man, we should just give more to Cornette. And he doesn't really want to do that. He's happy with his lot in life of maybe mostly being a performer. Is that fair to say?
Without question. He wanted no part of, I'll say it diplomatically, responsibility. Happy to give input, great input. He was very detached from his input and didn't take ownership in a positive way. Hey, Jeff, here's what I think. Let me roll it out to you. Take it for what it's worth. Jim, at this point, 2000, he was not just seasoned, he was super seasoned in that, hey, I've kind of been there, done that. I've worked for WCW and I've worked for Bill Watts and I've worked for Jerry Jarrett and the Crockett's and Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson and everything. So here he's at TNA and, Jim's mother, my grandmother, it's a long time, like family type relationship. He just wanted to help out. But as far as saying, hey, Jim, you have the responsibility of putting this show together or even any responsibility, he's like, no, thanks. I want no part of that. And to kind of back up on all this, when I kind of look at, what you alluded to, that there were definitive sides. And I think you just said, Kurt Angle and Dixie's ear. I almost wanted to kind of flip that and say, in a lot of ways, and we touched on it, and we've touched on it often in the Dixie episode and others, Dixie was really in Kurt's ear, which kind of makes it difficult, but it was a lot of tension, a lot of uneasiness. They're already, now look, we're 2, 3, 4 episodes going from 1 hour to 2, Conrad. So the unrest of everybody was at their bowling point because they weren't getting TV time. They obviously wanted more money. And then we went from 1 to 2 hours, more money, more TV time. A lot of people delusionally thought, oh, that's the instant cure. There's more slots. Well, that didn't happen that way. You can just have it just so, again, I'll go back to that, trying to make a healthy mix of veterans, talent, and up and comer talent and guys who've been there since day one. It was a hell of a juggling act that wasn't easy at times, which created a boatload of unrest. But as far as a true division, I was not aware of that. Like people picking sides, like Sting didn't pick a side. I was never aware of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but never aware of it.
Doesn't it seem a little silly too?
Oh, completely.
I'm not listening. I'm a big, I subscribe to the Torch and the Observer to this day. I have since 1997, no plans to stop anytime soon. Think about that. I'm 25 years deep in my subscriptions.
Wow.
Even when I quit watching wrestling, I kept the subscriptions. So even though I wasn't necessarily consuming the product, I'd still try to keep up here and there with the big, movers and shakers. But I say all that to say, boy, the locker room's divided. Everybody's picking sides. I'm not saying I've been in a bunch of wrestling locker rooms, but that feels like stuff to sell newsletters.
Well, and hey, I defend that. I get that, because the big picture was that good news doesn't sell. The good news was TNA just really upped their game from a revenue point of view. We doubled the licensing fee without doubling expenses, and I've said that multiple times on here. That was great. The ability to have 2 hours to sell pay-per-views as opposed to one. Now, that didn't always work out, but there was a lot of bright spots internationally. That's one of the things when I think back on where I sit today, Conrad, and the international opportunities out there in these days, pre-social media and navigating the way through international, the opportunities that were coming up when we went from 1 to 2 hours, then all of a sudden the international licensee goes, oh, wow. So now you can really provide us with, because we had a explosion. So you're giving us 3 hours a week, and just everything was growing exponentially. So I say all that to say there was so much positive movement behind the scenes, but that doesn't sell newsletters. Bad news does.
Well, I'll tell you what else sells, and that's wiener pills. We want to thank Blue Chew for making our wieners real hard. Now, of course, this past Wednesday, Jeff didn't need any because Jeff was flying high. You know who might have needed one? Darby Allin. He probably didn't know where the hell he was. Well, welcome to Slapnuts LLC.